G'day everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to be kicking off a brand new series here and we're going to be calling it Down the Line. Essentially I'm going to talk about all of the ships starting from tier 5 all the way through to tier 10 of the respective tech trees and just giving my thoughts on what each of the ships are like as you're playing through grinding them. Now, I'm not going to talk about the tiers 3 and 4 in each of the lines, I'm sorry. They're usually not very good at all. If they are, I'll give them an honorable mention, but you can blitz through them fairly quickly. So, today we're going to be kicking off things with the Montana line, and what do I think of this grind overall? I think the tier 10 is awesome. I love the Montana. The grind it gets a lot better from tier 8. So, the tiers 5, 6, and 7, they're okay. They're not great in today's meta, but they can work. So, that's just the overall view. If you want to click off, you can click off now. Otherwise, starting off at tier 5, we have the USS New York. This thing is fine. It's nothing particularly special. It's nothing exceptionally bad either. It's just okay. 10 of these guns, they do hit fairly hard, especially if people show you broadside. You do have a decent chunk of firepower. It does make for some solid hits, especially against lower tier players here, and if you do happen to fight some of the bots in the random matchmaker, it does make your life, pretty chill. It's fine. It is nothing particularly special. I'm not a huge fan of it. The main downside to this thing is namely the speed, and that's the biggest issue you're going to be finding when you go through the tiers 5, 6, and 7. Although, you can see here, it does pack a bit of firepower, so overall, I'll give this ship probably like a 5 out of 10. It's middle of the range, nothing special. Going on to tier 6, we're talking about the USS New Mexico. Now, this one I have a special relationship with. It was one of the first ships I actually got at tier 6, and it's got a special place in my heart for me. In saying that, how does it perform in today's meta? Not so great. In saying that, you can still have some fantastic results because this thing packs 12 of these 356mm caliber guns, and it's just a massive old shotgun. However, the games it finds itself in, if you're not getting lucky with the matchmaker and you're facing stuff like tier 7, tier 8, carriers, etc., you're in for a bit of a rough experience, and I think that's where a lot of people do tend to not quite enjoy this ship. It's a big, slow battleship, it eats damage, and when you're going up against those high tiers, it's a kind of a rough experience. In saying that though, I love this ship when you're fighting tier 6 and below. which should make sense because that's where you're most dominant. But it is a massive old shotgun. If you can get yourself kind of close, sure, sometimes the dispersion works phenomenally, other times the dispersion will absolutely troll the living hell out of you. It is a very questionable ship, but hey, it can be a bit of fun. So for this one, I'd be giving this one probably also a 5 out of 10. Being special, I'll probably give it a 6 for my personal experience, but overall I'd say it's 5 out of 10, maybe even a 4 out of 10 for most players. Moving on to tier 7, we have probably my least favorite ship in the line is probably it's going to be the Colorado. Now, this thing you get a step up from the New Mexico, etc., and you get these massive 406mm caliber guns, which is the same caliber as what you're going to get on the tier 8, 9, and 10 as well. These guns, they do hit absolutely hard. However, you take a big step back from the New Mexico and you only get 8 of these guns, which isn't the greatest thing in the world, because sometimes with battleships, you do want to be throwing as many shells as you can at your opponents to just score as many hits as possible, score as much damage. This thing, like the previous ships, it does struggle, especially those high bottom tier games, namely because of the fact you're extremely slow, you've got no armor, basically against those higher tiers. It eats a lot of damage, but when you're fighting tiers, same tier battleships, like this enemy, Colorado here, you can still dish out a huge amount of damage to them because of the fact overmatch exists. I have had some good games in this thing, but they're namely limited to when I'm fighting tier 7 or lower opponents. You can see a bit of a theme going on here with these kind of slow big American battleships here for the tiers 5, 6, and 7. It's fine, but it's going to be a bit of a struggle bus for a lot of players, unfortunately. But this is hopefully where most of the grievances of the line are going to be ending, because when you step up to the next tier, it is, let's just say it changes. The dispersion on these guns, it can be either phenomenal or a bit hit or miss. It's a little bit over the shop, but I do sometimes enjoy this ship, but it's not one I actively would go out to play myself. It's fine for grinding, but unfortunately this thing suffers from the fact you've got 3 separate lines to grind, so I would try and only grind one line and use free experience for the rest of the lines. Unfortunately, it's not a fantastic ship. I would probably have to give this thing at most a 5 out of 10, and that's a lot of that's coming from the fact I get a lower tier ships and have some cracker games like this one, for example. So yeah, 5 out of 10, I can't really put it much higher than that. But what I can do is talk about the tier 8, the North Carolina. After having slogged through all those slow battleships, you finally get to tier 8 with the North Carolina, and finally you get some good speed with this ship. This thing is a breath of fresh air, and it is by far one of my favorite tier 8 battleships in the entire game. Why? Large part is due to these guns, because you can absolutely dev-strike cruisers like that at the start of the game. You get 9 of these 406mm caliber guns. They're incredibly accurate, especially for the tier. They hit hard, and, well, you do some monstrous damage to people. I love this ship. Completely and utterly love this ship. It is a fantastic tier 8 battleship. You've got the speed. You've got these guns. You've got decent AA for what it's worth. I mean, it won't outright nuke carriers squadrons, but it will definitely deter them a bit. One of the downsides with this ship, though, is going to be its armor. But I think that's actually a good thing, because it definitely helps teach newer players how do you actually angle in a battleship. The big problem with this ship is you've got a big citadel if you're exposing flat broadside, and you're going to get punished for that. So this ship is a fantastic training battleship for just, hey, don't do that because you will get nuked. The other downside I would say with this ship is probably going to be the slow shell velocity of the guns, but that's something you're just going to have to get used to with this line. But I love this ship. This thing is absolutely phenomenal, especially compared to all the previous tiers. It is such a beautiful ship. I can't say too much more about this. You have to experience this one for yourself. This one absolutely gets an 8 out of 10 for me. It is fantastic. It truly is an amazing tier 8 battleship, and one I think every single player should have if you do enjoy playing battleships in this game. Stepping up to tier 9, we have the pride and joy of the US Navy, I guess you could say, the Iowa. This thing is, you take what you just got from the North Carolina and you apply it to tier 9, and you get even better. You can citadel people across the map like that. Sure, you have to give like a metric ton of lead to be able to hit those shots, but oh my god, this thing is insanely accurate. Such a beautiful, beautiful ship. I mean, not only does it look good, I mean, sorry, it's a very good looking ship, but it performs incredibly well as well. It's fast. It's got these very, very punchy guns. They're very, very accurate as well. And plus, you get access to a very unique American module that's only available on battleships of tier 9 and 10. And this is slot 6 dispersion module, and it just gives you better dispersion. Like, what could you ask for in a battleship? And this is where, like, this line really becomes special. I love these guns. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but I love these guns. They are fantastic. They are brilliant. You can hit people 25 kilometers away, accurately hitting their citadel. Like that Montana just ran out. It is a brilliant battleship. Same issues persist as we just found on the North Carolina. Like, for example, you don't want to be showing broadside because you will get absolutely punished for it. But it teaches you, try not to get yourself into these kind of crossfire positions because it will absolutely hurt. Another thing I did fail to mention before is you actually have an improved heal compared to a lot of other battleships in the game. So the Montana line, a couple of years ago now, actually got a buff to its heal. So you actually heal more than what a lot of the other lines actually do, which does make you a fair bit more survivable, especially if you do happen to find yourself in these kind of unfortunate situations, which you shouldn't really be trying to put yourself in. However, Iowa, it is a brilliant battleship. I love this thing. I love this thing. I don't know if I've said this before, but I am in love with this line. the Tier 8, the Tier 9, the Tier 10 are all brilliant battleships. And we're going to talk about the Montana in a second, but the Iowa, it is a great ship. Yes, these 406mm guns, once again, you do have issues like gunning overmatch, particularly against your 30mm armed cruisers and stuff, but you do have HE as well, which it can be quite brutal. Now, you can kind of roll with this thing. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, because, well, you're a big ship, your turning circle is not the greatest in the world. Your secondaries are okay, but they're nothing to rave home about, but, I mean, if you can aim your salvo as well, get a fantastic shot into your opponents, you're gonna take him out. This ship, for me, gets an 8 out of 10, and, yeah, I love this thing. I love it. And here we are, the crowning jewel of the line, the Montana. Everything you have just found out about the previous couple of ships, the Iowa, the North Carolina, it's better. For a start, you get an extra turret, so you get 12 of these insanely accurate 406mm guns, and they are phenomenal. I mean, it really is quite special having 12 of these guns that are stupidly accurate as well. This has quickly become one of my favorite Tier 10 battleships in the game, basically. I love how consistent this ship is. Like, you can... people showing you too much broadside, slap. You can hit them with a Citadel. It is phenomenal for being able to do that. Yes, as I've mentioned a few times, you do suffer when it comes to overmatch. Like some cruisers, like obviously a lot of 30mm plating, some of your battleships, it can be hard to actually penetrate them, right? You do have to aim more particularly for weak spots, but the second someone shows you a flat broadside, people do not have the same kind of punching power that you have. This is one of the heaviest broadsides, like at Tier 10, from memory. It used to be the heaviest for a long time. I can't remember if, I think the Vermont's replaced it now, but man, this thing is still absolutely nuts. I love this ship, and one of the things that I've found that makes this even more special is the legendary module for this one. It provides a pretty sizable improvement to your rudder shift, and obviously improves your resistance against your fires, your floods as well. It is a fantastic module I have. Yes, you do sacrifice your concealment module because it goes into slot 5, but it makes it so worth it. It makes it so worth it, especially when you go a full tank build on the ship, because you can just like withstand so much punishment, again, especially against all the dot damage, which is fires, floods in particular. This thing is fantastic. I love it. I just love the consistency of it. And it is definitely a battleship I would highly recommend all players to get, and especially if you're a new player, this is definitely the line I would recommend you go down. For me, this ship gets an 8 out of 10. It's a very straightforward battleship, focuses on guns, tanking. What more could you need? Well, gents, I hope everyone has enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider liking, leaving a comment down below, and subscribing as well. As well, if you want to see more from this series, the top like comment down below will also be able to choose what the next ship line that I do is. So, having said that, if you guys want to know what the best modifications you guys should be using in 2024 are for World of Warships, you're going to want to click on this video here.